So tracking for the first time, if you are new to tracking, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So we're just going to basically break it down in terms of what you need to do when you first start and the biggest mistakes that we see people making so you don't make them. You don't sell yourself short. So the first thing you obviously need to do is create an account in some sort of tracking app. We typically use MyFitnessPal just because it syncs to our app, but you can use NutriTracker. I think there's other things, but
other apps are available.
But they seem to be the main two. Now, I can't speak for any other app because I've only ever used MyFitnessPal myself, but I know what happens. Doesn't matter what way, how active you are. It says on MyFitnessPal, it says you'll need about, 1,200 calories, 1,400 calories maybe, if you're lucky. Ignore it. Whatever calories we give you, use them. And you might be thinking, oh my God, but it says 1,200 calories. You give me 1,800 calories and that's so much higher. Trust us, like the app it throws a generic number at you. So that's the first mistake. Now, when it comes to actually tracking, there's quite a few big errors that we tend to see across the board. And I think the first one is just doing it at the end of the day. I'll just kind of catch up on myself because the reality is you are going to have forgotten. Think about how many things you do in a bloody day. How many decisions you make, how many things you have to think about. Do you think you are going to remember every little thing and the exact quantities of everything that you ate? Probably not. Therefore, there's two ways that we suggest doing it. Laura, do you want to go with the first one as to what we suggest is the best way to track accurately?
Yeah, so I think especially when you're first starting out, tracking as you go is really, really good and probably one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah.
So making sure that you can just do it when you're making your meal. So when you're making when you're making your meal, track it as you go. So for example, say, breakfast time, you're having some oats because oats my favourite. That's what we're going to go with. Weigh out your oats, scan your oats, type in the amount that you've used. Do the same with whatever else you're adding to your oats, whether that is, protein powder, dark chocolate, banana, whatever that is, just track it out as you go. Because then that'll also give you time to think about, is this going to be filling for me? Am I maybe, giving myself a bit too much? Like, just think about what it is that you're actually having and what you actually need as well.
Absolutely. And then there's another way that you can do it that maybe if you are busier, maybe if you have got like a really busy job or, you're really busy with the kids, there is another method that you can use, which is sort of tracking it the night before. So like pre-planning and then following to what you've planned, a bit like you would a recipe. So if you had a recipe book to make a cake or a stew and it'd be like certain amounts of ingredients, you just literally follow it. So if you've planned X amount of chicken, X amount of rice, X amount of veg, for what have you, just literally follow it and then you can't go wrong. But doing it at the end of the day or ad hoc, it's not accurate. You're just not getting the most out of it at all. Now, in terms of other tracking errors, there's quite a few that we've seen collectively, and we're going to tell you these so that you don't make them and just don't do them, because all you're doing is selling yourself short. And like we said in the last video, people tend to be inaccurate. So if you're trying to be accurate by tracking, but doing these things, you're not being accurate. So it's kind of like, what's the point? So the first thing that I see is generic entries. Now, there's going to be a time and a place where I think a generic entry has its space. So if you've gone, for example, out for a meal and there's no calories available, typing in a pizza and using something that sounds about right is okay, because then you've at least made that conscious effort to do it. But if you are, let's say, making a sandwich at lunch, you just put sandwich, or you go and make yourself a spaghetti bolognese for dinner and you just type in spaghetti bolognese, you have no idea of the comparison of what you're having to the what's in there. I've seen some crazy ones like fish and chips at 500 calories. I'm like, you really wish.
I wish.
We all wish. I think I saw like a full roast dinner once for about 350. I was like, oh, the dream. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And then you're not actually looking at how much you're eating in terms of the portion. You could be eating way more. And then every little, if what you have is actually 300 calories more, okay, as a one-off, which is why I said in those one-off situations, that's fine. It's not a problem. But if you're doing that every day for every meal, that's you sitting at maintenance, and that's why your scale isn't dropping. So do you guys want to have input any other things that you've seen that people do wrong that's really important that people don't do wrong when it comes to tracking?
I mean, there's the forgetting to track certain stuff altogether. So things like the oils that you cook in, if you're not tracking those, or if you're going out for like a coffee and not tracking that properly, or even just the milk. If you're using full fat milk in a cup of tea, but you're having like 5 cups of tea a day, that milk all adds up. So it's just making sure that you do track everything that is kind of going into your body, everything that you're consuming, because sometimes people do just forget to track little things. Or it's things like kind of taking a bite off the side of the kids' plate, or just kind of grabbing something. All these little things do add up and do take you out of a deficit.
And that's why we do get you to track, and that's why we sort of suggest to do it as you go as well, especially if you are prone to picking and just kind of mindlessly snacking. It's creating that mindful pause to go, actually, do you know what? Do I want said food?
Yeah.
And sometimes you might, and that's okay to be like, actually, do you know what? I'm quite hungry right now, so I am gonna finish this bit of dinner, but I'm gonna ensure that it's tracked in my calories and keep myself accountable to that. So that's probably the benefit of doing it as you go more than anything, isn't it? So that you can have those mindful moments with those little things, like, do I actually want that? And then you realize, oh no, I don't. And that's when you can start to break those habits. Laura, do you have any others that you see that are really, really common?
I do.
Oh,
yeah.
she does. Oh, she's like, where do I start? Where do I start?
I think one of the big ones as well is knowing if you're tracking it uncooked or cooked.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like pasta. So you could have, say a standard pasta portion is like 75 grams. Your pasta when it's uncooked and your pasta when it's cooked is going to be the same calories. But if you weigh it and track it as uncooked,
rice is a big one.
It'll be like double the amount. If that's not explaining it well.
No, it is. Basically, they're just completely different. It's like 40 grams, for example, of uncooked rice versus 40 grams of cooked. Like the uncooked is more calories than the cooked. Because 40 grams of cooked rice is like nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas uncooked makes a decent portion. It doesn't matter which you do. That's the main thing to say, is it doesn't matter if you want to do it uncooked or you want to do it cooked. It doesn't matter. Like, it might be easy. I find it a lot easier a lot of time to do it cooked because it's just, you've made a load of rice and I'll have a portion of it. But just stay consistent with it.
Yeah.
Just stay consistent with it. And on that note, another thing that people do is they'll use metrics like, oh, I'm going to have a teaspoon of peanut butter, or I'm going to have a teaspoon of oil, or whatever it is, something along those lines. But especially things like peanut butter, like my teaspoon of peanut butter would probably not be what a teaspoon should look like, because peanut butter is
about 3 tablespoons.
It'd be the full jar. Like, just there you go, it's a teaspoon. So actually always using grams with everything, because unless you maybe are from a different country and you like to use other metrics, that's fine, but use a consistent metric and just stick with that. Yeah. That's a really, really big one as well. In terms of other ones, I have made some notes because there's quite a few. Eyeballing. Oh, I think that's about 30 grams. I think that's about a handful. You don't know. Just take that pause, track it, weigh it, make sure it's spot on. Are there any others that you guys have seen?
Can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there's probably loads.
The condiments one as well. I think you were saying about other things, but like little sauces and salad dressings. Like, again, that doesn't.
Some sauces can be heavy calories. So I think it depends what it is. Yeah,
that's true. I would always say as well, just ask us, like, if you don't, because there's certain things when you were saying about tracking everything, there's certain things that I wouldn't track because I think it's just not worth getting in that headspace of getting over consumed by every little thing. Like, I've said clients before tracking a Diet Coke that's like 0.1 calories. I'm just like, don't do that.
Or clients that track in their daily vitamins.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to track.
Yeah.
Lettuce leaves, like leafy lettuce leaves.
Yeah.
You don't need to track those. If you're having 1 cup of coffee or tea a day with a dash of skim milk, don't bother tracking that. If you have a tiny little drizzle of, like, the reduced sugar ketchup or a really low fat mayonnaise, again, that's not a problem at all. The problem lies in if you're just having, like,
it's when you're having about 100 grams of mayonnaise.
A full tub of mayonnaise on your sandwich, all of the barbecue sauce. Even things like, people don't do it with pasta. Like, I've seen it before, it's like pasta and chicken. I'm like, oh, it's a bit dry. Do you have a sauce with that? Yeah, I had this like creamy tomato. I'm like, that's going to have calories in it. So I think it's just making sure that you are being accurate. And on that line as well, like, the other final thing is, when we were sort of saying at the start about if you do generic entries, because you have to, be honest with yourself with those. Like we said, like, being honest? Like, if you've gone out on a weekend, you've gone out for a meal, and you are going to sort of loosely track it in, which is fine. Again, 450 calories for fish and chips. Have you had a look and seen that most of them are 1,000? Think, yeah, I'm gonna pick the one that's 450 because then that fits in for me. It's like, but is that actually what you're having?
Yeah.
I think like one thing I try and say to clients as well when I'm helping them tracking a meal out that's not on like calories on menu, I will say to them like, don't just go for the lowest calorie option, because if you're really lucky, then yeah, that might be it. But 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be, and it's going to be a lot higher than you actually think, because you have to remember as well that when you are going to a restaurant or a cafe or whatever it is, they do tend to be higher calories.
Because they want it to taste as good as possible. Their intention is thinking, most cafes and restaurants' intention is not, how do I make this as delicious but low calorie as possible? It's like, I want to make this so goddamn delicious this person comes back. So there is oils and things, which again is fine. How I would recommend tracking it, if you can, is look to see if there's like a chain restaurant that has the same product.
Yep.
Or like, if you're not, look at things like Tesco's Finest range and things like that, like comparing to those. The final one I'd probably say is, you kind of touched on it earlier, Leanne, liquids.
Yeah.
Liquids generally, like alcohol,
Fruit juices
fruit
is a big
juices,
one.
smoothies. If you do like to go to Costa and have like a latte and what have you, which again is fine, but they do need to be tracked and accounted, just because you don't
Frappuccinos.
Frappa
Get you every time.
Especially, I think people think about those. People don't think about just like a latte or a flat white. It's like, but there's still 100 calories. Or there's still depends obviously what you get. Alcohol's a big one. We'll do a thing about alcohol in a bit, but alcohol is one as well.
Even just like juice, like if you buy a bottle of Oasis, I think they're like 80 to 90 calories, and you think it's nothing because it's just like squash, but it all adds up.
Yeah. And we're not saying that these things are bad by any scope. We're just saying that you just have to be aware of them, because they do add up. And I think whether you are aware of it or not, now you are from this talk. So it's just being aware to go, actually, do you know what? Yeah, they do have calories, and be mindful of it when you are making the choices for your day.